Have you ever heard a story, a really wild one, and just thought to yourself, wait, could that actually be true? Yeah, we've all been there. Rumors are like one of the oldest forms of media on the planet, but today they travel faster than ever. So what is it that makes them so powerful? Why do we, smart, rational people, fall for them and sometimes even help spread them? All right, let's get into it.
So just to see how real this gets, think about this. Tropical Fantasy Soda Pop. It's a popular drink, and then all of a sudden, it's being accused of being part of this horrific racist plot. Now, it was completely 100% false, but the rumor, it was absolutely devastating. I mean, delivery trucks were getting attacked, stores were pulling the product from their shelves, and sales just fell off a cliff, down by 70%. This wasn't just some harmless chatter, it had real, destructive consequences.
So that's the big question, right? How do these whispers, these unverified stories, completely hijack our brains and start dictating what we do and what we believe? Well, it turns out the answer is buried deep in our social psychology.
First things first, we need to get a really clear handle on what a rumor actually is, and, just as important, what it isn't.
Okay, I know, this formal definition looks a little dense, but it's actually key. A rumor isn't just a lie. You can think of it more like a tool. It's an unverified story that feels really important and relevant, and it thrives in ambiguous situations. See, when we're in the dark about something, rumors are our brain's attempt at, well, collective problem solving. It's a way for us to try and make sense of chaos and manage potential threats together.
And I love this analogy because it clears things up perfectly. A rumor is like a morsel of food during an information famine. It feels absolutely essential when you're starved for facts. Gossip, on the other hand, that's like a juicy treat at a party. It's entertaining for sure, but it's not vital. And an urban legend? That's dessert. It's a good story, but the urgency just isn't there. So the main takeaway is that rumors are all about urgent collective sense-making.
So it turns out that psychologists have found that most rumors are driven by one of three really powerful emotions. And if you understand these, you can pretty much categorize almost any rumor you hear.
First up, we've got what are called pipe dream rumors. These are basically our wishful thinking going public. They reflect what we desperately want to be true. You know, think of those classic wartime rumors like, oh, it'll all be over by Christmas, or more modern ones about a miracle cure that's just around the corner, or a stock that's secretly about to go to the moon. They're all about soothing our collective anxiety with a little dose of hope.
And then, on the complete flip side, you have bogey rumors. These are born from our deepest fears and anxieties. Think about food contamination scares or warnings about some kind of hidden threat. You see this today with stories about the supposed dangers of new technologies or some undisclosed side effect of a new medicine. What they do is give a concrete shape to our anxiety, turning this vague dread into a specific and seemingly manageable danger.
And finally, we get to the most dangerous type, wedge-driving rumors. These are basically weaponized stories. They're motivated by hate, and they are specifically designed to create an us versus them mentality. You see these pop up constantly during heated political seasons, right? They paint opponents not just as being wrong, but as being immoral or even treacherous. And it's all done to strengthen the in-group's resolve and hatred for the out-group.
And you know, the data on this is just fascinating. A study of rumors from way back in 1942, during World War II, found something pretty stunning. Nearly 2/3 of them, almost 66%, were wedge drivers. They were designed to create hate and division. It just goes to show you that in times of incredible stress, our tendency isn't just to hope or to fear, but to blame.
Okay, so now we know what rumors are, and we know their different flavors. But that still leaves the biggest question of all. Why do we share them? What's actually going on inside our heads that makes us hit send?
So for a rumor to really take off, you need a perfect storm of 3 psychological ingredients. First, you need uncertainty. When we don't have clear information, our brains just hate that void, and we rush to fill it with something. Second, you need anxiety. Fear makes us desperate for answers, for any sense of control. And third, you need belief. We're way more likely to share something if we're at least partially convinced it's true, even if the evidence is super flimsy.
So what's the payoff for us when we share our rumor? Well, there are 3 really big ones. First, there's fact-finding. We're actually trying to problem solve. We share info to get feedback and collectively try to figure out what's true. Second, there's self-enhancement. I mean, let's be honest, it feels good to be in the know, right? It kind of boosts our status. And third, there's relationship enhancement. Sharing a juicy rumor is a social transaction. It strengthens our bonds with our group and signals trust.
All right, now let's zoom out. We've looked at the individual mind. Now let's look at the social network. How does one little story explode into a massive viral phenomenon?
You know, there's this common misconception that rumors just spread randomly, kind of like the flu. But they don't. They cluster. They find their people, and they create these little echo chambers, bouncing around inside a group that's already primed to believe them. But they almost never cross over into groups that are likely to be skeptical.
So what makes a rumor jump from one of those clusters to another and really go viral? Well, the answer is hubs. These are the opinion leaders, the highly connected people in any network. A rumor might just smolder for a while, but the second it reaches a hub, boom, it gets broadcast far and wide with explosive speed.
And this whole idea of hubs also explains this really cool phenomenon called diving rumors. These are stories that pop up, then they seem to fade away, and then suddenly they reappear, sometimes months or even years later. The rumor never actually died, it was just dormant, lying in wait for a new, well-connected hub to breathe life into it all over again.
So, given how deeply this is all ingrained in our psychology, is there any hope of actually controlling rumors? Well, the research says yes, but it takes a very, very deliberate strategy.
The really crucial point here is that rumor control isn't just about playing whack-a-mole with every story that pops up. It's about managing the environment. That means building trust in official sources and in leaders. It means releasing information quickly to get rid of those ambiguous vacuums where rumors grow. It means keeping people engaged and purposeful. And finally, it means actively campaigning against rumor-mongering itself, making it socially unacceptable to spread that kind of stuff.
And that brings us to our final thought. You know, these principles we've been talking about, they were developed in a pre-digital age. Today, social media algorithms can turn literally anyone into a global hub overnight, amplifying a rumor to millions of people in minutes. So the real question for us today is this: how do we adapt these timeless psychological rules to fight a fire that now spreads at the speed of light? Honestly, that's a question we all need to start answering.